Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Yes, so last night we began going through these different vibhutis as Prabhupada translated these stupendous manifestations, or rather splendorous manifestations, amazing displays of the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we got through, we read, the last one we read was 29, so let us go on to number 30. Among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahlad. Among subduers, I am Time. Among beasts, I am the lion, and among birds, I am Garuda. Yes, well, of course, the idea we've already explained a number of times. The idea is that these are just amazing displays of the Lord's energy. It's not exactly that Prahlad is like an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is not the case. And neither is it that the lion is a form of Krishna. I know he's considered king of the animals, but not on the level of Krishna. So these are all very special displays of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Prabhupada translated, we just mentioned, splendorous manifestations. Right. Well, in this verse 30, just one thing I can mention. Krishna says, among subduers, I am Time. Time is a super energy of the Lord. When we get into the next chapter, chapter 11, then after Lord Krishna displays the universal form, which is very astonishing and very overpowering for Arjuna, then Arjuna asks Krishna, who are you? Really? Who are you? I thought you were my friend, but now I see you are really a different person altogether. And Krishna answers, I am Time. Kalosmi. I am Time. Yeah, so time is a very special energy of the Lord. We were actually talking about it this morning a little. I think it was in Srimad Bhagavatam class, that Yes, we were talking about it this morning, that time is such a special energy of the Lord that when Mahavishnu glances over the material energy to activate the inert material energy, then in his glance, the living entities pass through his glance into the womb of material nature, and his Icha Shakti also means the potency of the Lord's desire, but then also the Kala Shakti, the energy of time, goes from Mahavishnu through the glance into the womb of the material energy, the womb of Durga, actually. And then time starts functioning again on the material level. Up until, since the previous distraction, and up until now, I mean that time, the beginning of the next creation, there was no material time as we know it. So time is very special. All the energies of the Lord are special, but time within the material world, time is a very special energy of the Lord. Yes, and well, time, we see how time is controlling everything in the material world. People cannot escape time. Chanakya Pandit said something which Prabhupada also agreed with and stated himself on a few occasions. But Chanakya Pandit said that time is so valuable, so extremely valuable, that if you lose just 1 second, what to speak of an hour, a day, a week, a year, or a lifetime, if you lose just 1 second, you cannot buy it back for all the money that exists. Cannot. It's so valuable. So Prabhupada, here's a little note from a class by Srila Prabhupada. However, all the strength of time cannot hamper the activities of a devotee, for a devotee takes complete shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord. For this reason, only a devotee is free from formidable time. All the activities of the karmis and jnanis, which have no touch of devotional service, are spoiled in due course of time. The material success of the karmis is destined to be destroyed. Similarly, the impersonal realization attained by the jnanis is also destroyed in the course of time. Yeah, so time is very special. 31. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapons, I am Ram. Of fishes, I am the shark. And of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. Yes. So, Prabhupada doesn't make, with a number of these, anyway, with this one for sure, he doesn't really say a lot in the purport. We could just point out a couple of things. This Ram, of wielders of weapons, I am Ram. Now we have 3 main Rams, you could say. One, of course, is Lord Ramachandra. One is Lord Balaram. and the third is Lord Parashuram. So which one is Krishna talking about here? Well, both. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Baladeva Vijayabhushan, both of them say, this must be Parashuram. It must be. Because he is a Shakyavesh avatar, in this particular case, meaning he is a jiva like you and me, like all of us. He's an ordinary living entity, but due to his very elevated status, he has become empowered by the Lord as a Shakyavesh avatar. So he is basically functioning as if he's the Lord. He's empowered like that by the Shakti of the Lord. But actually he's one of us. Yeah, Shakti Avesh. Shakti, of course, means the potency, the power. And Vesh. Vesh basically refers to a covering, even clothes, actually. But some form of covering is a Vesh. Yes. So it's his actual nature as a jiva soul like us has been covered over by the Shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so therefore he's acting like the Lord, basically. Yeah, that's an interesting little point. Sharks, yeah, of fishes I am the shark. Well, of purifiers I am the wind. Let me just mention, you may remember from the second chapter, which verse was it, I forget, but it was somewhere, anyway, not 20 itself, but around 20, the point was made also about the wind purifying, cleansing. Yeah, of fishes I'm the shark, means the shark amongst fish is unique. The shark is the only fish which has no natural enemy. No one is chasing it to eat it. Rather, the sharks are chasing even the whales, sometimes. So powerful, and so even graceful, you could say. Yeah, they're very sort of charismatic creatures, the sharks. When I was a young man surfing, twice actually, sharks came, big sharks. One time it really came pretty close. Wow, Hare Krishna. Ooh, I quickly exited out of the water. And of flowing rivers, I'm the Ganges. The Ganges is the most amazing river. Like I mentioned last night there was mention of the Himalayas, and I made the point that every devotee should go up into the Himalayas and visit, like Badrinath particularly, very sacred and nice place of the Supreme Lord. And you see the Ganges, different branches of the Ganges coming down and meeting. It's really very beautiful, very wonderful. And just an interesting little point. We did mention, actually, when we came across this comment by Srila Baladeva Vijayabhushan about the Ganges, he was comparing Ananya Bhakti, I think you should remember that term by now. Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti. Pure Bhakti. Bhakti, ananya, with nothing else. Only Bhakti. So he said that this pure Bhakti is so powerful. It can just sweep away any contaminations which are there within your heart. And he says that Ananya Bhakti, pure devotion, it is very powerful, like the strong currents of the Ganges coming down from the mountains, powerfully sweeping away everything with great force. It needs nothing else to purify the heart. But to come to this Ananya Bhakti level, one needs to understand Krishna. So Lord Krishna will speak further about his opulences as he's doing right now. Okay, and 32. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end and also the middle, O Arjuna. Of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. And among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Well, that's interesting. Well, we already read, do you remember, was it last night? It was probably last night, actually, how Krishna said, he is the beginning, middle, and end of all beings, he said. Just not long ago. Let's just have a quick look here. What does he say? Yeah, it's in verse 20. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Means living beings. Now in this verse 32, he's saying, of all creations, I'm the beginning and the end and also the middle. Of all sciences, I'm the spiritual science of the self. And among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Well, that's nice. That's nice. In regard to the spiritual science, science means to hypothesize, then experiment, and then come to some conclusion. That's the process of science. But the scientists do not exactly do that. They theorize, and then they say that something is proved. But then we find they change it some years later. This is going on. So many things have supposedly been proved, but after a little while they get changed. Welcome to science in Kali Yuga. Yes. So one devotee suggested once, maybe they should all give back their PhD degrees. Maybe they should give back all the money that they took from selling their books. But they won't do that. They won't do it. Yes. So, and then Krishna consciousness is the highest truth. Krishna consciousness is the highest truth. It's the most scientific because, as Lord Krishna mentioned some days ago, right at the beginning of chapter 9, verse 2, what did Krishna say in that regard? Krishna said that that it's the highest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. Yes, it gives direct perception of the self. It doesn't just, Krishna consciousness doesn't just tell you, just believe in this and that and hope for the best. And, you know, who knows if you're going to find out. Then, talking about logic, Prabhupada, the last paragraph, Prabhupada says, among logicians there are different kinds of argument. Supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposing side is called jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda. But the actual conclusion is called vad. This conclusive truth is a representation of Krishna. 33. Of letters I'm the letter A, and among compound words I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators I am Brahma. Yes. Well, that's interesting. We just read about time and we spoke about time. Which verse was that? It was verse 30. Among subduers I'm time, and now here I'm inexhaustible time. Well, it's very important, therefore it's getting special emphasis. But the letter A is an interesting letter, particularly in the Sanskrit language. Even in English also, I don't know if it is the letter which is used the most, but it's right up there, I think, with E. Anyway, you could always check. Google can tell you. But A in Sanskrit, A is totally foundational, because all of the other letters in the entire alphabet, every single one of them includes A. Yes, like we have A as the first letter in English, then B, C, D. In Sanskrit, it's Ba, Sa, Da. Yeah. Every letter has A after, included in it. So in that way, it's an essential element in the Sanskrit language. Yeah, and Sanskrit language is called Devanagari, the language of the gods, or the language of God, actually. And there's a little sutra by Srila Jiva Goswami, listen to this. Narayanad udbhuto yam varnakrama, which means the Sanskrit alphabet with its order appeared from Lord Narayan. So Sanskrit, it's not just another language, some old language, kind of technical, classical, complex language. It actually has a sort of somewhat divine nature. Yes, so time, anyway, we mentioned time, we won't speak about it again. Well, I could mention, let me just mention then, that, time is so valuable, as we said, as Chanakya Pandit said. And we noticed with Srila Prabhupada, we hear about in regard to Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, but we witnessed with Prabhupada how he used time, how he did not waste time. It was really outstanding. It was really outstanding how he used time. Not sleeping very much at all, and always keeping fully engaged in devotional service. You remember when we were reading chapter 6, do you remember that? How when the 6:17, he who's regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. And in the purport at the end, towards the end, Prabhupada says, because he mentions, Krishna mentions recreation, Prabhupada says, since there's no question of sense gratification for a devotee, there is no material leisure for a person in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Aha. Right, yeah, so time is not to be wasted at all. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. And then amongst creators, the Lord says, I am Brahma. In the Bhagavatam, it's the purport of 11th Canto, Chapter 3, verse 12. 11:3:12. There's a description of, referring to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, of 4 different types of Lord Brahmas with different natures. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has pointed out that there are 3 categories within the status of Brahma, namely those of Karmi, Jnani, and Yogi. A Brahma who's the most exalted Karmi of the universe will have to come back to the material world and be Brahma. Oh, no. He's going to have to take birth again. So he's the most exalted materialist, a Brahma who's not exactly a devotee, a living entity who's achieved the post of Brahma by being the greatest speculative philosopher may attain impersonal liberation, and a living entity who's been awarded the post of Brahma due to being a great devotee enters into the personal abode of the Lord. Then in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:32:15, yet another case is described, a Brahma who is a devotee of the Lord, but who has the tendency to think himself independent of or equal to the Lord. So this Brahma may achieve Mahavishnu's abode at the time of annihilation, but when creation begins again, he has to take birth again as Brahma again. Yeah. And in the 9th canto, we find the statement that when Srila Prabhupada himself says that when a living entity first enters the material world, the first birth is as a Lord Brahma. 34, I'm all-devouring death, and I'm the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. So death Yeah, well, that's going to come up in the next chapter. But we did make the point, a couple of weeks ago or so, or not long ago, that the staunch materialists will not bow down before the Lord. They won't bow down before the Lord. They're too proud. But when their death comes, and that's the Lord, as he's saying, I'm all-devouring death. When the Lord appears to them as death, then they prostrate themselves on the ground, full dandavats, and they don't get up until they're moved. Yes. So now, then what is it? I'm the generating principle of all that's yet to be. Among women, I'm fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. These, in Sanskrit, these words are all feminine gender. They're all feminine gender. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point here in the purport. This is the second paragraph. The 7 opulences listed, fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience, are considered feminine. If a person possesses all of them or some of them, he becomes glorious. If a man is famous as a righteous man, that will make him glorious. Yeah. And then Prabhupada starts talking. What now? Okay. Anyway, let's just carry on. Sanskrit is a perfect language and is therefore very glorious. If after studying one can remember a subject matter, he's gifted with a good memory or smriti, and the ability not only to read many books on different subject matters, but to understand them and apply them when necessary, is intelligence, medha, another opulence. The ability to overcome unsteadiness is called firmness or steadfastness, driti. And when one is fully qualified yet is humble and gentle, and when one is able to keep his balance both in sorrow and in the ecstasy of joy, he has the opulence called patience, kshama. Those are all these feminine qualities. Interesting. Okay, next one, 35. Of the hymns in the Sama Veda, I am the Brihat Sama, and of poetry I'm the Gayatri. Of months I'm Margashirsha, November, December, and of seasons I am flower-bearing, spring. That's nice. So we already mentioned the Sama Veda, actually. The Brihat Sama is part of it, and it's the sweetest part, the most beautifully, sort of in literary terms, the most beautiful part, and it is the most complex, has the most complex meters. So therefore it's special within that special literature. Then the Gayatri. Well, that's interesting. This is something we could spend a whole lot of time on, the Gayatri. He is referring to what we call Brahma Gayatri, which every Hindu knows. I will not recite the whole thing to you, because if I did, it's arguable that I might be giving you all second initiation by giving you the Gayatri, that Gayatri mantra. But I'll just mention couple of words and you'll recognize it. Om Bhur Bhuva Swatat Savitur, and so on. Yeah. Well, you know, that is the sound of Lord Krishna's flute. And when you become advanced enough, you will hear it as such. And you know, that famous Gayatri, which I just spoke a half of, or some part of, in Shastra, and particularly Srila Jiva Goswami goes to some lengths in Tattva Sandarbha to explain that Brahma Gayatri, the first line of Gayatri, which those who are second initiated chant, Om Bhur Bhuva, that mantra we just mentioned, Shastra says, and Jiva Goswami elaborates on considerably, that the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is an explanation of that first Gayatri mantra. Yeah. It's an explanation of the first Om Bhur Bhuva, that Gayatri mantra. The first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Janmad Yasya Yoto and Vayad Itaratas Chaute Shavagya Swarat, and so on. So that first verse of Bhagavatam is an explanation of that first Gayatri mantra, which Jiva Goswami says, it is the prototype mantra of all the Vedas. It means it embodies the meaning of all the Vedas. And seeing the rest of the Bhagavatam after the first verse, from the second verse onwards, the whole rest of the Bhagavatam is just explaining that first verse of Bhagavatam. So that means the whole Bhagavatam is a detailed explanation of that first Gayatri mantra. How's that? And there are parallels in terms of different words in the first Gayatri mantra and different words in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me just tell you some. In the first verse of Bhagavatam, it begins, Janmad Yasya Yataha, the source of birth of everything. In that Gayatri mantra, the parallel word is Savitur. Then, this first verse of Bhagavatam says, Tene Brahma Rida. The Lord spoke the Vedic knowledge first to Lord Brahma through the heart. Tene Brahma Rida. In the first verse of Gayatri, the equivalent is Prachodayat. Then in the first verse of Bhagavatam, it's stated, Trisargo Misha, the three levels of creation in the material world. The parallel in that first line of Gayatri is Bhur Bhuva Swa. Those are the three worlds. Then in Bhagavatam first verse, Swarat means self-effulgent, independently. In Gayatri, the word is Devasya, which means effulgent. Then in the first verse of Bhagavatam, there's the word param, means supreme. And in first line of Gayatri, there's the word varenyam, which also means supreme. And then in the first verse of Bhagavatam, satyam, satyam, maintainer. In Gayatri, Bharga, maintainer of all that exists. Anyway, I don't know if you all followed all of that, but it's interesting. Then Magh is a very auspicious month. Spring is the most beautiful month because everything starts flowering. Here in South Africa, it is spring. A lot of flowering is going on. 36, I'm also the gambling of cheats, and of the splendid I'm the splendor. I'm victory, I'm adventure, and I'm the strength of the strong. You know, this Krishna says I'm the gambling of cheats doesn't mean that we should think that successful gamblers are forms of Krishna. No. I am the splendid of the splendor. Well, in regards to cheating, Prabhupada said, if someone tries to cheat Krishna, then Krishna will certainly out-cheat them. And there are many examples of Krishna cheating people. Lord Chaitanya as a child, with the two thieves who wanted to steal his jewelry, so they took him away from his house, and they took him back to their house, but he tricked them. He had them bring them back to his house, and they couldn't understand what happened. How did we end up here? We were just arriving at our house, but Krishna cheated them. Lord Chaitanya cheated them. And I am the strength of the strong. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada says, when Krishna was present on earth, no one could surpass him in strength. Even in his childhood, he lifted Govardhan Hill. No one can surpass him in cheating. No one can surpass him in splendor. No one can surpass him in victory. No one can surpass him in enterprise. And no one can surpass him in strength. Yes. 37. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudev, and of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyas, and among great thinkers, I am Ushana. Well, yeah, Vasudev. In the purport here, Srila Prabhupada points out Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Baladeva is Krishna's immediate expansion. Both Lord Krishna and Baladeva appeared as sons of Vasudeva, so both of them may be called Vasudeva. So, yeah. So, and then he goes on that it is to be understood that the Vasudeva referred to in this verse of Bhagavad Gita is Baladev or Balaram, because he is the original source of all incarnations. Yes. All right. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, let's go on 38. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment, and of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence, and of the wise, I am the wisdom. Let's just read the purport here. There are many suppressing agents, of which the most important are those that cut down miscreants. When miscreants are punished, the agency of chastisement represents Krishna. Among those who are trying to be victorious in some field of activity, the most victorious element is morality. Among the confidential activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating, silence is most important, because by silence one can make progress very quickly. The wise man is he who can discriminate between matter and spirit, between God's superior and inferior natures. Such knowledge is Krishna himself. And then Krishna sums up from verse 39 to 42. It's like a kind of little separate subsection. 39, furthermore, O Arjuna, I'm the generating seed of all existences. There is no being moving or non-moving that can exist without me. I'll just read all these verses. We have a few minutes. That's what we normally do when there's a section, verses that are connected together. We read through all of them. So that was the first one, 39. 40, O mighty conqueror of enemies, there's no end to my divine manifestations. What I've spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. 41. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. 42. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Okay, let's have a look through here. So, right, in verse 39, let's just read the purport. Everything has a cause, and that cause or seed of manifestation is Krishna. Without Krishna's energy, nothing can exist. Therefore, he's called omnipotent. Without his potency, neither the movable nor the immovable can exist. Whatever existence is not founded on the energy of Krishna is called Maya, that which is not. And verse 40 again. O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I've spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. So, just before we got into this whole list, back around verse 18, 19, I think it was 18 even, just around that point, Arjuna asked Krishna, can you show me your vibhutis? Like, he's basically asking, can you show me all these potencies of yours? And Lord Krishna makes the point that there's too many. I can't show you all of them, but I will show you some which are prominent in this world. And Prabhupada explained there that, in one of the purports there, that Krishna's idea in saying that, and now he's just concluded doing that, is not in all cases, of course, but in many cases, he has told us that this is a form of me, of himself. And in so many cases, those things which he says are forms of himself, or we understand they're manifestations of his energies, they are things that we have experience of in this world. Experience of, and even things we can just see. things we can just see. Like here in Durban, it's windy season. September, October, it's the windy time. And what did we read just today? That the wind is purifying. In some cases, if you hang some dirty thing up in the wind, then the wind will clean it, at least to some degree. So anyway, Prabhupada in the purport makes the point that here, this is verse 40, this has just been a few examples. Prabhupada says, simply a few examples are being described to Arjuna to pacify his inquisitiveness. Yes, because there's no limit. There's no limit to the opulences at all. And verse 41. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Yeah, so Prabhupada just gives very brief purport. Any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be but a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulence, whether it be in the spiritual or material world. Anything extraordinarily opulent should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. Yeah. In that Krishna has empowered whatever that thing is with this particularly attractive feature or features. And last verse 42, but what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Yeah, well, that's very significant. If we look at the, what is it now? Which paragraph? It's the second paragraph. Sort of the middle of the second paragraph. If, however, one thoroughly studies the different descriptions of the opulences and expansions of Krishna's energy, then one can understand without any doubt the position of Lord Sri Krishna and can fix his mind in the worship of Krishna without deviation. The Lord is all-pervading by the expansion of his partial representation, the Supersoul, who enters into everything that is. Pure devotees, therefore, concentrate their minds in Krishna consciousness in full devotional service. Therefore, they're always situated in the transcendental position. Devotional service and worship of Krishna are very clearly indicated in this chapter in verses 8 through 11. That is the way of pure devotional service. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the opulence of the Absolute. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.